Yeah, it's good to see you. Good to see you all here. Good morning, good morning. The beginning of March, we have a new theme this month, and our topic today is living in the question. And Dr. Mary will be presenting that. We have a special moment for you all to share with us, so I'm going to have Lindy come up here and set the video ready for all of you, and sit back and enjoy this opening.
Have courage, my soul, and let us journey on. Though the night is dark, and I am far from home, thanks be to God, the morning light appears. The storm is passing over. The storm is passing over. The storm is passing over. Hallelujah. The storm is passing over. The storm is passing over. The storm is passing over. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Passing over. The storm is passing over. Hallelujah. 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 The storm is passing over. The storm is passing over. The storm is passing over. Passing over. The storm is passing over. Hallelujah.
There you go.
I hope you're all smiling as big as I am. I just think that's so awesome. That's going to be a little bit what we get to do at Easter too this year. But the storm is passing over. I believe that there's a healing happening, and this pandemic we're biting its butt now, right? So we're moving forward. I'm Reverend Sue in service today, and Jill is at the board desk to answer any questions, and I appreciate that our bookstore is open. Cheryl's here to serve the bookstore. Thank you, Cheryl. Lindy at the soundboard, and Mary and I in service if anyone needs treatment support. We are here for you. And of course, our Doug and Ronnie watching over welcoming everyone. So if this is the time you get to turn and wave to the camera, because some people are at home watching and we want them to see you and you to see them. So we wave big, and big smiles behind your masks, and they can see it in your eyes and they can feel it in your heart. Yay. Yeah. So that part is still really endearing, no matter how many times we've done it now. It's just really sweet. If you want to take a moment to turn and silence your phones, we'd appreciate that. And if you're new with us today, there is a friendship packet in the back to welcome you here. And if you have any information during the week or after service today, we are here to show you around. And we look forward to when the center is fully open again and our children return. That's the next glorious step. So also, this birthday month, we celebrate birthdays the first Sunday of March. Are there any birthdays for March that are in here today? Yay, Craig, awesome. Well, happy birthday to you. And Doug, your birthday too, awesome. Oh, and there's Jill. She's aging quickly. Those of you at home, we also wish you a Yahoo for your birthday this month. Yeah, we need to pay attention to ourselves or no one else does. So really stand up for yourself when it's your birthday and get all the attention and love you deserve. So a few announcements, I'll just go through them briefly. We have a little Easter basket display out there with a little bunny rabbit, some plastic eggs, with a beautiful affirmation and a sweet chocolate inside. And that is part of our Match the Funds donation. We had an anonymous donor give us a gift of some money right at the right time. We needed to repair our pavilion's AC last year, but because of the pandemic, we were able to just close the building down and wait. But we anticipate opening this summer again, and so we need to address it now. So any amount that you want to put in an envelope and put in the little basket there, and then take an egg and bless your life for being a part of that fund. Daylight savings next week. Okay, got that registered. I always stress on it for about 5 days before, so I'll probably be emailing you all and reminding you that hour before, because this is it starts on daylight savings on the 13th. Why that's important, because we have services on Sunday, the 14th, and we want to make sure you're here on time for that. And also we have our congregational meeting, and it's going to be all by Zoom. And you have received, if you were a member, a ballot in the mail to vote for the incoming board members, which is, Christy's here. She'll wave at you. She's one on the slate, and so is Linda Mitchell. She's not here with us today, but we're honoring Reverend Dr. Mary going off the board and Diana Wolfstead. So it's a give and receive circle there, but we want the membership to put in their words. So even if you're watching on Zoom, if you could send those back to the office, we'd appreciate that. Sacred Sisters meets tomorrow night. If you need a Zoom invitation for that, just email me and I'll shoot that back to you. We're going to be talking about Lilith. Lilith, you have to say it like that. Lilith. And Alexis Telesinger notified me yesterday that's one of her passions is Lilith. So she wants to join us in the conversation. So that ought to be wonderful if she can carve her time out for us. That starts at 7. Men's group with Roy, also at 7. And then the book club with Unity Church will be an in-person experience, but because of COVID, it's limited to just 5 people from our center. And we'll be studying the book Grandmother's Hands. And it's a beautiful book about, it's called Racialized Trauma and the Pathway of Mending Our Hearts and Our Bodies. It's a very beautiful approach, a holistic approach. And that's going to start on March 17th, and it runs through May 5th. It'll be 1 to 3 at Unity Church, so just think of that on St. Patrick's Day. And there's more information in a sign-up sheet back there on the entryway. And finally, I'll just announce also, Reverend Andy will be speaking again on March 21st, following the service, Metaphysics of Hope. Beautiful platform workshop that he's put together to follow the service, and he loves this topic. He describes it as the optimistic teachings around hope as an anchor to our faith. And I've been to many of his workshops, and they're well worth your time. You'll be very inspired. So that's briefly a rundown. Please check the website or the awareness, or with Jill in the back if you have more questions. Now I'm pleased to say that Craig is going to come up and do our reading for us today. Craig Boyer, followed by the sound of the bell, followed by a treatment, and then our message. Craig.
This morning's reading is from Books to a Young Poet by Rainier Rilke, who lived from 1875 to 1926. In this classic, he makes a beautiful case for the importance of living in the questions, embracing uncertainty, and allowing for your intuition. In 1903, he wrote a letter to his protege, a 19-year-old cadet and a budding poet. Rilke wrote, "I want to beg you as much as I can, dear sir, to be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves, like locked rooms and like books that are written in a very foreign language. Do not seek the answers which cannot be given you, because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions right now. Perhaps you will then gradually, without noticing it, live along to some distant day into the future, into the answer of the questions."
A timely message to live in the question, to just let go and allow the divine and the intuition to just guide you gently on your way. As you continue to allow your heart to speak and to question what is, and to find your value and your purpose in just living and being and loving and serving, we find our way. So I give thanks for the many teachings that support this truth, that allow us to relax and let go and allow God, that divine presence, that truth, that way, to be our lead, to be our deepest understanding. I give thanks for Dr. Mary's wisdom today as she shares with us some profound wisdoms of the past, to bring it forward to the future now as we realize how much we are growing and deepening our understanding together on this path as a community. I give thanks for all of this, and I release this prayer into the greater good, knowing it's already so, it already is, and so it is. Dr. Mary. Thank you, Judy.
Good morning. I hope you liked that quote. It was really good. In fact, I went on Amazon to see if I could find the book. You know, it was originally written in 1905 or something. It's available for $5. It's a real heck of a deal if you like poetry. All right. You know, in this time of life, I don't know about you, but I'm spending more time alone. And as I spend more time alone, perhaps COVID is triggering these questions that don't have a current answer. Like in 2 to 5 years, what's your life going to look like? Will it be the same? Do you want it to be the same? So many of us find this kind of questions lurking in the background of our mind. What is it going to be like in 2 to 5 years from now? That's why I was inspired by Rilke's quote, because he understood that when we're unable to recognize or know the answers, we're called to live in the question, to wrap ourselves in the question, to live in the moment, and gradually we know that, thank God, Spirit will bring us answers. You know, last week in our practitioner class, it was a lot of fun. We all found ourselves discussing, in what form or another, what is the highest idea for my life? You know, being called to be a prayer practitioner, you find deep satisfaction in choices, and you find deep satisfaction in listening to other people and listening to yourself. And one of the requirements for being a good practitioner is that deep level of listening, being open to that intuitive voice and to listen. So when we open up and invite a spirit into our lives, there's unlimited possibilities ahead of us, unlimited. And so in class we were discussing, one's looking for a new home, one would like a new job, one would like more creativity. We had all these ideas of what we want. And we realized when we really look at our lives, there's been stepping stones along the way that have already been guiding us there. So it's not that we have to look from this point forward. We have to look, where have I come from? How is my life unfolding now? And how can I envelop that with Spirit's guidance into my perfect life expression in the future? So those stepping stones are important to look at. For myself, over the past 10 years, I've developed a prison ministry. Not that I went searching for it, but prisoners started writing to me saying, I saw an article with your name on this thing called Science of Mind. I want to know more. I think it can help me adjust to life in prison. So it's been very interesting as we correspond how Science of Mind does help them. It helps them adjust to the challenges they face every day. So you probably have heard that I'm going to retire later this summer, and I think at that time that prison ministry will by itself expand. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. You know, as students of the Science of Mind, we know the law of cause and effect is always at work. So when we focus on a question, we know God already knows the answer. So we consciously invite in ideas, and they may have been swimming in the background of our mind or in the ethers all around us this whole time. There's I forget what her name is, but she said, you know, these creative ideas are flying by, and sometimes we look at them and we go, that's too much, and then another one will go, oh, that's a great idea. So we're swimming in this ether of infinite possibility. Every week, our spiritual leader, Dr. Edward Villon, creates a video to give us ideas about the Sunday topics that they've named, like living in the question. And it's really helpful. And he was saying that visioning and visualization are great ways to begin opening up to these infinite possibilities. Now, visioning begins with silence, and it's followed by a question such as, what is Divine Mind's highest idea for my life? Now, Reverend Sue is really good at visioning, leading a group in visioning. She's also helped the leadership of the center vision the future, and so we'll find out at the end of this year how that vision has worked out, how it unfolds. Now, visualization begins with the blank slate of our mind, and we just kind of hang out in the silence. We just kind of hang there, and we catch thoughts that are going by. We just catch them. We know they're divinely inspired. The voice of the divine presence. Can we hear the divine presence idea of the highest good for our lives? It's an interesting question. So we live in the question, and we know the answer's coming by. There's a website that I found called Co-Intelligence, very interesting name for a website. And there was an article there by an author, Peggy Holman. It's called Moving Beyond Answers to Live in the Questions. And she was part of this group that got together, and they had a conversation consisting entirely of questions. You couldn't make a statement. This might be fun to do with your friends sometime. They could only ask questions. They thought it would be easy, but it was incredibly profound because the different types of questions showed up. Statements masquerading as questions, rhetorical questions, open-ended questions, questions that directed their attention, strategic questions, questions that modified, overlapped, or focused on another question. And she noticed that the powerful questions kind of simultaneously came together within the group, and it was like having a spotlight on an area of the room or a corner of the room where all their attention was diverted to. So the essence of a dialogue of questions is one of exploration, and that's the essence of the questions that the author Rilke gave to this budding protege poet. Those things that are unresolved in our hearts, We live in those questions, and we dialogue with people around us. And when we live in the question as a way of life, every morning it's just a way of life, we're in dialogue with Spirit itself. So keep up those questions. Keep them up. You'll be amazed what fresh information comes your way. When I start on Thursday writing the Sunday talk, takes me Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then up at 6:30 this morning. So it's quite a process. So what I do is I Google the topic, and this one was living in the question. So I just Googled it, and all kinds of things came up. But where it led me, I had no idea it would come up this way. It led me to the Oracle of Delphi. How many know about the Oracle of Delphi? Raise of hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. Well, I hope you'll find this as interesting as I did. Because we go back into ancient Greece, a world dominated by men. The highest positions in society were ruled by men. The battlefields were ruled by men. They ruled the mightiest empires at the time. However, all of these men sought counsel and advice from one person, and that person was a woman. She was called the Oracle of Delphi. This was a woman who they believed the god Apollo spoke through. So she was a really big deal. And in Delphi, it was a city in Greece that included the temple of Apollo, the god Apollo. It was the most important shrine in all of Greece. And Delphi was considered the navel of the world at that point, 1400 BC. I thought that was interesting. As early as 1400 BC, the oracle was considered a prophecy. She could prophesize because she was under the divine possession of the god Apollo. Now, how she got under that possession of the god Apollo is its own story, and I will not tell you that because it's like amazing. You might want to look it up if you're curious. How does one get possessed by the god of Apollo? She was consulted by government leaders, by citizens, until the 4th century AD. People came from all over to ask her questions. She could determine the course of everything for their lives, what time of year to plant their seeds, when to declare war. Everyone believed every word the Oracle of Delphi spoke. Now that's 1,800 years, 1400 BC to 400 AD. And of course, that took more than one woman to hold that position. And so another interesting story, should you choose to explore it, is how did they choose these women? And originally they were very young and beautiful, and over time they were over 50. And so it's very interesting how that happened, and I won't go into that. But over the years, thousands of people came to her ardently believing every word she said, because it was from God. It was from the god Apollo. Now, there aren't many writings about sessions with the oracle, but here are a couple of her pronouncements. Around 83 BC, it's the time of Pompey the Great, one of his allies consulted the oracle to say how he himself could find great fame. And he was told, make your own nature your guide in life, not the advice of others. I'm going, that's pretty good advice. Pretty good advice. In 359 BC, Philip II, he was the king of Macedon, he consulted with the oracle about the future, and he was told this: with silver spears, you may conquer the world. So he thought about that. And based on that, he went out and took control over the silver mines in all the neighboring kingdoms and used them to bribe his way to victory. The oracle said, with silver spears you may conquer the world. And he took that literally. Now here's an interesting story. At one time, Philip II had this highly spirited black horse. It was a colt, very highly spirited. No one could ride this horse. So he went to the oracle. And she said, whoever can ride this horse will conquer the world. So Philip tried, could not ride that horse. All his generals tried. They could not ride this horse. But his son, Alexander, I love how all these names come in, who later became Alexander the Great, Philip's son, observed the horse, and he realized the horse was afraid of its shadow. So through that, he learned to calm the horse down and ride the horse. Now, have you ever been afraid of your own shadow? Or do you know someone who's been afraid of taking a new step, going a new direction, afraid they'll fail? I thought that was interesting. It's a good analogy of sometimes what holds us back. But if you're afraid and frightened, what does the law of cause and effect say? That's what's coming back to you. So no wonder none of the generals could ride the horse. No wonder Philip couldn't ride the horse. But Alexander figured it out. Now here's the other interesting thing about Alexander. His dad was the king, and this was the time of Aristotle. And his dad hired Aristotle to tutor Alexander. Now what kind of a tutor would that be? The most amazing tutor in the world, to have Aristotle tutor your son. So Alexander was very smart. And around 16 years of age, he stopped having the tutor. And that's about the time his father gave him this black horse, 16. Then at 20, his father was assassinated. And Alexander took over the throne. He was still so confident at what the oracle said. The person who can ride this horse will rule the world. So by age 30, he created one of the largest empires the world has ever seen, from Greece to India. The creative process was alive and well in Alexander, confident in the oracle's words that he could rule the world. So back to the oracle. In the early 6th century BC, philosophers, mystics, politicians, lawmakers began writing down the words of the oracle. Not a bad idea. And today on the internet you can find them, and they're called maxims, M-A-X-I-M-S. And a maxim is a guideline or advice that provides a framework for living an honest, worthy life. So the Delphi Maxims is a collection of 147 maxims. And they're all available. They're just absolutely delightful to read. And of course, they believed at the time that this was the word of God. Each one was the word of Apollo himself. 3 maxims were carved into a column at the temple. And the first one is, know thyself. The second one, nothing in excess. Sounds pretty good. Nothing too wild. The third one I had to get a definition of because it's called charity. Charity brings ruin. So when I looked it up, it said, when you become responsible for the debts of another person, you're going to end up in ruin. So I thought that was interesting. So another famous person comes into the story now, Socrates. 450 BC. This is still the time of the oracle. He returns from the war. He returns to Greece from the war, and his pursuit in life is for the truth. His reputation as a philosopher and a teacher were well known. And one of his students went to the oracle just to check her out, and his student said, who was the wisest man in Greece? And she said, well, Socrates. Pretty cool. But when Socrates heard of this, he was determined to prove her wrong. His ego just couldn't take it, being called the wisest man in Greece. He was determined to find out if anyone else knew what a truly worthwhile life was like, because they would be smarter than him. So he approached statesmen, poets, artisans, anyone who he thought probably knew what a truly worthwhile life was like. He questioned everyone, and he could not find one person. No one could give him a satisfactory answer. They all pretended to know, but they clearly did not know. Finally, he had to accept that the oracle was right. He was the wisest. Because he alone, out of all the people he talked to, admitted his own ignorance in areas. He did not pretend to know something he did not know. Does that ring a bell in your life? Do you know anybody that knows everything about everything? When you ask them, you know you're going to get the truth, their truth, the whole truth, and nothing but their truth. And so Socrates realized he did admit his own ignorance in certain areas and did not ever pretend to know what he did not know. So at one point, Socrates asked his students about the first maxim, know thyself. And he said, can you explain that to me in a deeper way? And here's what one of his students wrote. Who do you think knows himself? The man who merely knows his own name, or the one who behaves like people buying a horse? They don't consider that they know the horse in which they're interested in until they have satisfied themselves, whether it's an obedient or disobedient horse, whether it's a strong or weak horse, whether it's a swift or slow horse, and how it stands in respects to all other qualities which makes a horse desirable or undesirable. The student wrote, I'm thinking he's talking to Socrates. The man I'm thinking of has in the same way ascertained his own ability by examining his own qualifications in respect to human relationships. We should carefully study our own nature, our character, particularly our strengths and weaknesses, because a man who does not know his own ability is ignorant. What a student, huh? I thought I'd throw out a few more maxims to you because there's 147 and you only heard 3. So here's my favorite. Follow God. Obey the law. Respect your parents. Know by learning. Listen and understand. Be in control of yourself. Now, I really like that one. Help your friends. Control your temper. Exercise prudence. Be eager for wisdom. Find fault with no one. Let me repeat that one. Find fault with no one. Be impartial. Listen to all. And if you have enough, give. Now, I hope we're going to get more rain after the rain the other night. And as it starts to come, and maybe hopefully rains for a couple weeks or so, pull up those 147 maxims. Take out a soft blanket, make some hot chocolate, and read them. And I think you will be greatly inspired. And I really liked 147, Judy. She said, give her a clue. I didn't tell her the number. I really like 147. You know, last week we had a beautiful celebration of life for Linda Aldrich, who's in the choir for so many years, wonderful woman. And 147 says, at the end, be without sorrow. Be without sorrow. And she sure was. She told several people right before she passed that she looked back at her life and saw what a grand adventure it was. In The Science of Mind, Holmes wrote that our belief sets the limit to our demonstration. So it's not a question of Spirit's willingness to give, it's a question of our willingness to be open and receptive. So think of the thousands of people who were open and receptive to the oracle's words. And thank God she had good words. They all believed they were directly from God. And we believe that the universe is the result of the self-contemplation of God. And as the Bible says, we are made in the image and likeness of God. So our life experiences are the result of our own self-contemplation. So know that there is that in you, which is the center and the circumference of the universe flowing through you. When we contemplate who and what we are, how we feel about our relationship to God, what we believe about principles and the practices we teach here, we find the answers coming to us through many means: visualization, visioning. We could take on the characteristics of God, peace, power, beauty, joy, and invite all the answers in. And it's expressed this way by Dr. Holmes, and I love this. Holy, holy, holy. Inner presence, great and mighty. Inner light that shines divinely. Inner life that lives completely. Inner joy that smiles serenely. Inner peace that flows so deeply. Inner calm, untroubled, happy. Inner love that gives so freely. Inner power that holds securely. Inner truth that never fails me. The inner eye that sees so clearly. Inner ear that hears him always. Inner voice that speaks serenely. Inner good that binds me to thee. Holy, holy, holy Lord, God within me, I am so grateful, and so it is. Thank you.
Go ahead, Judy, hit a key. Here we go. Feeling it? Yeah. Just so you know, I was once told that I was the Delphi Oracle. Just so you know. I only speak the truth, so watch my practitioner calendar fill up now. We practitioners got a new angle. That was a lot of fun, Mary. Thank you. So this is the time we just hold gratitude in your heart. Feel that gratitude. Just let it pour through you for what we have here together, where we get to share music, to share our hearts, to share our masked smiles, but we can feel each other's hearts. And so every amount of money that you donate continues to allow us to thrive. And so we stand here now just thanking you for that. We have the offertory baskets for safety at each of the doors as you exit. And the bookstore, I want to remind you, is open, and Cheryl is ready to serve there. And we have the little Easter basket. If you want to munch on a piece of chocolate, you can maybe even throw 50 cents to $1 to $100 in the basket. We're happy. And so right now, let's just remind ourselves that attitude of gratitude with our affirmation that speaks, gratefully I give, with that attitude of abundance. For as we give, we know that we too truly receive. And so thank you, God, for that. So let's do a moment of just the affirmation of your knowing here. This Ernest Holmes proudly reminds us there's only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. Now, really feel it as if it's the Apollo downloading it into you. There's only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. And so it is. So we have a closing song by Dalton. Lindy's going to cue that up. So enjoy taking his music home with you in your heart. You'll hum it throughout the week, I'm sure. And again, we appreciate the Heart Song Choir and their presentation to start our service. Go ahead, Lindy.
God's love is deep within me, ever satisfying my soul. God's love is deep within me, ever satisfying my soul. I looked deep within me, and what did I see? Ever satisfying my soul. The love of God, so full and free, ever satisfying my soul. God's love is deep within me, ever satisfying my soul. God's love is deep within me, ever satisfying my soul. And when I feel peace that sets me free, ever satisfying my soul, I know that I am one with thee, ever satisfying my soul. Oh, God's love is deep within me, ever satisfying my soul. God's love is deep within me, ever satisfying my soul. Ever satisfying my soul. Oh,
Thank you, Dalton. Thank you, Dalton. That's a great one to take home, isn't it? Yeah. Go have a beautiful day. It is just spectacular out there, and be inspired throughout your week. Thank you, everyone, for being here.